so that we can share it with those who may miss it. Okay, looks like we're recording. Great, so I'm going to share my screen and start walking you through this demo course that I created. So let me do that now. Okay, so hopefully you can all see the CLT SpeedGrader demo course. So what we have here is, hi Lauren. This is a course I created to enable us to show everyone how SpeedGrader functions and walk you around some of the tips and tricks. So this is a course that I've submitted. I enrolled myself as a test student, and I created a couple dummy assignments. So I want to show you first how you can access the student papers in one of three ways. So hopefully most of you know how to do this already, but I'm going to cover these just in case. So on the home page here, you'll notice that as the instructor, you will have these two assignments. Anything that has a paper submitted will pop up here under your to-do list. So you can access that. You can access the SpeedGrader by simply clicking on that item. So that's one way. And this is taking you right to SpeedGrader. So I'm going to go back and show you the other way as well. The other way to do that is to open the assignment. And then locate where it says SpeedGrader and click on that. You'll notice that it did open in a new window doing it that way, which is sometimes helpful so that you can keep that assignment open and you can remind yourself of the instructions while you're grading. And then finally, the third way that you can open up the papers is by clicking on the gradebook. And now we're in gradebook view. And when you hover over the assignment, you'll see these three dots. And you can click on that and then click on SpeedGrader. So all three of those ways will get you to the same place. So now what I'm looking at here is the student submission. This was submitted just as a Word document. I did not restrict the file type when I set up this assignment. A PDF will look very similar to this. You almost cannot tell the difference. So this paper was submitted, and now as the instructor, I can start marking up and annotating this document. So let's say I want to highlight something. I can use these tools here. This is the highlight button. I can highlight a passage, a word, a passage, a paragraph, and then I can add a comment if I wish to explain why I've highlighted it. Okay, so that's one way you can annotate. Another thing you can do is simply insert a comment using this pointer tool. So this, I might say, I might add a comment here. So that's something else that you can do. You can also insert text right over the items. You can also, if you decide you want to delete it, simply hovering over the item will pop up this little trash can icon. So if you ever decide that you want to get rid of that, you can do that simply by doing that. So you've got those two options. There's also a strike-through tool. Which again, you can simply use to strike through text, or you can also add a comment. You want to be very specific about your feedback to your student. I have not used this tool too much myself, but it gives you the option to circle things. You have some control over the width of your line and the color. So this could be something you want to play with. Again, anytime you annotate, it does give you the option to include a comment. You don't have to, but you can. And finally, another control here is this little square tool. Useful if you would like to highlight an entire section of someone's paper. So all of these annotations are going to be saved immediately, and then the student will be able to see them and then respond to them. And I'll show you what that looks like from the student view in just a minute. So, are there any questions about the annotation tools in SpeedGrader? I'm not sure if I can view the chat while I'm in. Maybe I'll stop share.
Ursula, there's a question about whether Canvas moves things around depending on how zoomed in or out you are. I was wondering if there's a way for you to demonstrate that and where comments might go if you zoom in.
If I zoom in, okay, let me try that. Let me share my screen again. And if the person who asked that feels like they need to clarify, feel free to do so. Yeah, so the zoom functionality is here. It looks like the circles and the squares that I've put have stayed fixed. You can, using this pointer tool, move most items. So let's say I accidentally circled the wrong area. I can drag that around. So I'm not sure if that was what your question was about. But zooming should stay, everything should stay fixed. Okay. So I want to now show, Caroline, just feel free to jump in if someone's asking any questions, but I want to jump in and show you a couple different ways that you can now grade this paper. And I know that many of you know how to do this already.
Sorry, before you go on, could you show real quick one way to get into this editing mode? So one way to get into SpeedGrader, not go through all three again.
Right. From the home page under the to-do list. So when you're on your course homepage, on the bottom right, you will have any items that are ready to be graded will be showing up there. Click on that. You can also open the assignment itself and then click on SpeedGrader from here. And then also from the Gradebook, which you can access by clicking on grades. All three of those will open SpeedGrader and let you look at this view. So this saves you from having to download papers and grade them, and it allows you then to add your comments and your feedback right on the paper. So when you're ready to grade, there are a couple different options here. Let's say this paper is worth 100 points. You can simply enter in the grade right here, if you wish, by typing in the number, and as soon as you click out of it, it's saving that grade. So that basically saved it. So that's one way to grade it. You can also use this rubric. So this rubric was created earlier and attached to this assignment, which I'll show you how to do if you're not familiar with rubrics. We'll show you that later on in this session. So this was an existing rubric that was attached, and it is set up in what we call free-form comments, which means that there is a comment box for each criteria of the rubric. Doesn't mean you have to use it, but you certainly can. So this rubric was broken down into, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different criteria. And when you click on this, you get a little more explanation. Whoops, excuse me. And this is what students can see when they're looking at the assignment as well. So as you go through here, you can then enter in the number of points for each criteria. So we're going to give this student almost full marks. 92, and then as soon as you hit save, that score then is calculated and populated in that grade box. And again, students will also see this, and I will show you that from student view momentarily. And there's and the other assignment that I've got in this course, there is what we call, it's a different kind of rubric where it's clickable, and I'll show you that in a moment as well. But for right now, where we're in this assignment, I'll show you one more thing, which is the assignment comments box. So when I submitted the assignment as myself, the test student, I added this in as I was submitting. There's an opportunity for students to make a comment, so that would show up right here. And then as the instructor, you have the opportunity then to include overall comments to your students. So when I hit submit, now the student is going to see the numerical grade, any rubric scores that they received, as well as this comment from myself. And there are also two other options. Well, there's three options here. One is if you wanted to attach a different file, say you wanted to share with your student maybe some tutorial on APA style, for example, or some additional information that would be helpful to them. You can attach a file to your comment. You can also create an audio or video comment right here in Canvas. So you can see that it is hearing my voice. It knows I'm talking. And I can give the student feedback verbally or using a video. Speech recognition, I have not really played with. So if anyone else has done that, let me know. That would be cool to check out. So essentially, this is what you would do for each of your papers. And now that you're in SpeedGrader and you want to go to your next student's paper, you can simply move to the next student by using this navigation here. This shows you that you've graded 1 out of 1, so only one submission. There was only one submission and you've graded it. And this shows you the average of all the graded submissions. And then if I want to go to the next student, I would simply click this arrow. But there is only the one student in this course right now. If you click on this down arrow, you would see all of your students populated here. So you can quickly skip back and forth from one student to another.
May I ask a question, or would you prefer chat, Ursula?
Yeah, go ahead. Jump in.
This is Tarnferg. So my question is, there are times that there are, more than one student who has missed the timestamp deadline of 11:59 p.m. And I would like to, I have a growth mindset in my courses that they can still submit late. But I also like to prompt them and let them know that. Mm-hmm. And is there a way to send it out to multiple? Right now I go into comments, I put a 0 in the grade area and I enter in comments, I'm still interested in hearing your thoughts on this case study or whatever it is. Please submit for points. But what I would love is if something could auto-populate after a missed deadline so that I'm not micromanaging in that way, but that everyone just gets the same language from me.
Message. Okay. Well, one option that you have is from the gradebook view, you can message any of your students who have not submitted. I don't know if you've tried that.
No, that's perfect. So I go to Gradebook.
So I'm in the Gradebook. I click on these 3 dots, message students who, and you can see the options here.
Perfect. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's probably the quickest way. While we're in this, I do want to also show, I'm going to kind of skip towards the end of what I was, the end of my to-do list here, but there's this feature called the grade posting policy, which you can set for the entire course, or you can set per assignment. And I'll show you what that looks like. And I didn't mention this, but I've been teaching with CCO for the past 4 years, and I use this every single semester because I want to give myself the opportunity to grade students one at a time and then release all of the grades when I'm ready to. For me, I've found that sometimes I may, as I read later submissions, I may realize that one of the earlier submissions I had forgotten to look for a certain thing, or maybe I was grading a little too strictly in the beginning or loosely, and then I want to adjust myself as I go. So by using this, you have the opportunity to, it used to be called muting the assignment, but now they have changed the terminology in Canvas. And what they, essentially you're not going to be posting the grades until you manually release them if you wish. So it's right here under grade posting policy. So the default is it will automatically post. So as soon as you enter a grade or hit a submission comment and hit enter, students will get notified. It will show up in Canvas for them. If you wanted to turn this in, do it the way I was suggesting, or one way to do it is, and this explains to you when they get notified. So play around with this feature, see if you like it. You do have to remember then to release the grades. So I'll show you what that looks like. So now I've set that grading policy for the entire course. So if I had not yet graded this, it's going to show up as, it will remind me that it's not visible to the student yet. And I'll show you what that looks like when I grade assignment number 2. So bear with me for a second. And then while we're here, this late policy gives you an option to automatically grade items that are not submitted by the due date, or you could deduct a certain percentage or number of points per day. I would just use this very carefully because it's very automated and it may not give you the flexibility that you want. But think about that, and we could maybe include a link to more information about using the grade posting policy and the late policies in our follow-up or in the chat window. So now you can see that the gradebook says manual, which indicates that, that the grades will not be released automatically. However, because this one was already graded, I believe it was sent out ahead of time. So one quick way to get back to the course from SpeedGrader or from the gradebook is you'll notice that Canvas tends to automatically expand the gradebook to full width by hiding the left-hand navigation, but you can get to it by simply clicking on the little hamburger icon, and then that brings back all of the left-hand navigation. So we could go back to the course homepage if we wished. So here again, you'll see under my to-do list, I have one more paper that I need to grade. And if 10 of your students have submitted this assignment number 2, it'll show up as a 10 here. So if I'm ready to grade this, I'm going to click here and it's going to open the SpeedGrader for me. So I won't show you the annotation tools again, but I will show you what this different rubric looks like. And this is the rubric I referred to as a clickable rubric. It does not have the free-form comment field. I'm trying to make this window a little bigger. So what's nice about this is it allows you to, you can do your grading a little bit more quickly this way. So let's say you're going to give this person full marks, but this works best if you've broken it down into multiple columns. Obviously, this is set up with either full or 0, so it's not going to work as well as you might think it will. However, once you do click on this, you still have the ability to go in and edit the number of points in there. So let's give this student a 98. I'm going to hit save. And here's where I can submit my comment. So that's the more simple clickable rubric, as I call it. And I'll show you how, if you're not familiar with creating rubrics and attaching them to assignments, I'll show you that in a moment. So one last thing I want to show you here, you'll notice now that this little eyeball, it has a slash through it indicating that that grade has not been released to the student because we had set it up to hold the grades until I manually release them. So the way to do that is by clicking on this and I hit post grades. And now you'll see I have two options. Either everyone in the class will then be able to see whether they've been graded or not, or you can just hit graded. This also gives you the option if you've got your course cross-listed and you have more than one section combined together, you will see multiple sections here and you can check. So say your 01 section, you could release those grades at that moment and wait until later to do the other section. So again, I really like this feature. I recommend trying it out and seeing how you like it. Okay, so let me now just show you what it looks like from the student side. So I'm hoping, I can't see what you're seeing, but I might have to, let me new share. Here's what I'm gonna do, okay. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, I think this is right. Are you seeing my active window? I apologize. Just want to make sure that I'm sharing the right screen. Do you see, Caroline, maybe you can let me know. Do you see this where it says grades with the little one icon, the one symbol?
Yes, we see that.
Perfect, thank you. So this is me logged in as my student, my test student self. And the student now sees what they have on their to-do list. This is the course homepage. They see just a synopsis of their recent feedback. So there you can see the grade that was given as well as the submission comment that was entered in that comment box. So one of the ways that the student can access their comments is by clicking on the item. And now you can see the thread of submission comments. This is what I posted as my student self when I submitted the paper, and this was the instructor's response. And now I, as the student, could write back again, and now you've got a little conversation going here. And you as the instructor would get notified. As long as your notification preferences are set to allow that, you will get an email notification that there has been a submission comment. If your assignment allows them to resubmit, they could do it here. You have the ability to lock that down and only allow a single submission if you wish. But I find that makes it more work later because they rarely do without asking first. It just gives you that ability. So students now can click on this show rubric and they can see how many points they got within each of the rubric criteria. And if they want to see the annotated feedback that you left for them, they need to click on view feedback. And in the chat, and also I hope at the end of this, we'll send you all a list of links to some more information. Canvas has a great tutorial on this that you might want to include or send to your students in an announcement, because many students miss this piece. And if you're going to take the time to mark up their document, their paper, you want to make sure that they know how to access these comments. So it might be worth sending them a note and an announcement or an email saying, I've graded your first assignment. I have marked up the papers. in order, here's a quick link to learn how to access those comments. I will just make sure that they know how to see it. So again, this is the student's view of the comments that the instructor made. I, as the student, can now reply to this if I wanted. I have not seen that happen very often myself, but it could happen. And so you then, as the instructor, could see that later. So basically, that is the student view of the feedback. They can also see everything by clicking on grades. And this shows them the score, and they can quickly click on any comments, as well as the rubric here as well. So they have a couple different ways to get at it. Okay, so that's the student view. Any questions on what we've covered so far?
I have a question, Ursula.
Sure.
I'm looking in the discussion. So when I do the SpeedGrader for the discussion posts and it shows all the different discussions, I'm not seeing it. So we can still go into and make notations in that text too and make comments, or can't we?
Great question. No, discussions does not give you the markup tools
Okay.
that you have with the paper.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So I'll move on now, but if there are any other questions, pop them in the chat and Caroline can stop me. So
Ursula, quick follow up on that last one.
Sure.
That also, not having access to the annotation tools also applies to text box submissions for assignments, right?
That's right. That's right.
You only get these tools if you're submitting a file and it is not universal by file type. So I often recommend to people that if students are submitting a text document, that they limit it to Word document formats and PDFs, because, for example, it doesn't work with Apple Pages.
Great point. Thank you. So you may have noticed this red box with a number. If you have not been using Turnitin, that's what this the score is, the student's similarity score. And it's not working. I'd love for this to work. Let's see if it works. Fingers crossed. Okay, here we go. So if you haven't set up Turnitin on your assignments, I will show you how to do that in a moment. But right now, I just want to show you from the SpeedGrader view how you can review the results for this student's paper. Right here is the overview of the results, showing 82% similarity to other sources found either online, through websites, through previous student works that have been submitted, not just to Champlain College, but to other institutions that Turnitin works with. And also works, academic works through the library, all kinds of places. So this is scrolling and scanning and looking for similarity in as many places as it can and returning this number. So obviously 82% is a big number. Generally speaking, if it's in the single digits or the teens, it's probably not a problem. And it doesn't automatically mean that there is plagiarism, but it's just something for you to be aware of. And it gives you another tool to make sure that your students are properly citing their work and not plagiarizing. So the way that you would learn more about where these matches are coming from is you can click on each item and it will highlight and tell you where this information came from. So it could be that your student is copying and pasting, or it could just be that they did not properly cite the work. And then now it's a teaching moment that you could engage in. This gives you the opportunity to quickly scroll through all the items that have returned a match related to this one source. You could also decide to exclude the source for some reason if maybe this is allowable for them to do it in this manner. So again, it does not necessarily mean that it is plagiarism, but it gives you more information to make sure that your students are following proper procedures. So that's what the similarity score looks like from the instructor side. And if you have set it up, your students will see this score themselves as well. And we may want to do a longer session on Turnitin at some later time to get into some of the finer details, but just wanted to show you this real quickly. Okay. So while we're talking about Turnitin, what I can do next is show you how to turn Turnitin on your assignments. So let me quickly go back to the home page. I'll go to assignment number 3. And I will also show you how to attach a rubric. So here we are in the assignment. I can click on edit. And as I scroll down, one thing you need to make sure that is enabled is online submission, and you have to have file uploads checked in order to have the option to turn it in. As soon as I do that, you'll notice now that it pops up here under plagiarism review. Select Turnitin Originality, and it gives you a couple options here. You can exclude bibliographies and direct quotes to minimize any false positives. You can then decide whether you want the students to see see their entire similarity report, which is what we just looked at. They could see it immediately, after it's been graded, after the due date, or never. So that is up to you. And then as soon as I hit save, now students, when they go to submit this assignment, they have to check a box acknowledging that this is their work and solely their work, which serves as just another mechanism for prompting them to do the right thing. So that's how you enable Turnitin, and we have a link to a tutorial there as well if you need to come back to that at a later time. So when I go to add a rubric, there are a couple different ways to do this. You can create a rubric right here within the assignment, give it a title, and just start typing in each criterion, the quick description of it, a longer description. And then you can determine how many marks is considered full marks, how many points, I'm sorry, is full marks, how many is no marks, and work your way down the line and create all of your criteria here. So you can go through this process, you can then delete them, you can edit them later, you can change the point value to anything you wish. Here are some of your options, and similar to Turnitin, I think a longer webinar on this very topic I think would be helpful, but this is just a quick overview of some of the options. So this free-form comments was the first assignment that I showed you, where it gave you a comment box for each rubric criteria. That checking that then allows you to do that. You can also use the rubric without points. So if you want to just let them see how you're assessing them without telling them exactly what each criteria, how many points each one is worth, you can do that. The Learning Mastery Gradebook is a whole other topic, so I won't get into that. Now, if you want to use it to populate the grade, as I showed you, you do have to check this box. So that is, that must be checked in order for it to even show up in SpeedGrader. So I will check that, and then I'm going to create rubric. This is warning me that it's not 100%. That's okay for now. So that's one way to create a rubric. And then real quickly, I'll just show you the other way to create a rubric is by going first into the outcomes section and creating the rubric here, and then you attach it later to the assignment. So, all right, this is, I apologize, this is not what I was expecting. Okay, well, maybe you can't do that. Oh, here's why. They have a new comment. They have a new navigation here. Rubrics used to be with outcomes, and now it's its own item. So by clicking on rubrics, now you can see all the rubrics that are part of this course. So here's the one that I just created with that assignment, and here are the ones that I imported in earlier. So if I want to create a new rubric, I can do it here in the same way that I did earlier. And then once it's created, it's not automatically attached to that assignment, but you can do that by editing the assignment and searching for a rubric. So that's a quick overview of creating and attaching and using rubrics to grade. Anybody have any questions about that before we move on?
We have a question here. Why would you possibly not want to allow the rubric to feed into grading if you were using the rubric in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I personally don't think you would, but if you are sharing, if you want to create the rubric just as an FYI for students, but you're more interested in reading it on your own and coming up with your own assessment without breaking it down that way in the grading and then coming up with a final grade and entering that in, you could do it that way. But it is designed for, ease of grading. So try it out that way and see if you like it. Okay, so I've shown you rubrics. I've talked about the grade posting policy. The only other tip that I had was, I don't know if anyone's using the Canvas teacher app. There are Android and iOS apps for phone and iPad. I personally have not been using them much. I used them early on to do some testing and didn't love it, but that is another option for you if you want to try that out. And if anybody has experience with that and wants to share their insights, feel free to jump in. But otherwise, we can open it up to any additional questions. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, looks like we have a question about not allowing students to see Turnitin report. It's another good question. I think it comes down to instructor preference. If you want them to be able to see what you're seeing and use it as a way to educate them about where they might be slipping up, then you absolutely should show it to them. If you're concerned that they're going to then redo the paper and resubmit and expect a different grade as a result, then you may not want to show it to them before it's graded. If anyone else has any alternative thoughts on that, please feel free to jump in. Okay. All right, if there are no other questions, then I think we can let everyone go. Give you 15 minutes of your day back.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.